Hello children, today we are going to read chapter 15 pages 141 to 143 of the reader Little Lord Fauntleroy. But before we begin, I'd like to give you a recap of the previous lesson. Now, Ben took his son Tom to California, but before they left, the Earl invested in a ranch of his own and made Ben the master of that ranch. It was a surprise for Ben. The Earl also decided to provide for Dick, and he was sent to school. Mr. Hobbs decided to settle in England. His opinion about the lords and earls changed. He also bought a shop in Earlsborough, which became very popular. The Earl invited all the lords and ladies and people from the village to celebrate Cedric's 8th birthday. It was a grand day with great celebrations, and Cedric was happy because his mother and the Earl both were with him. Now let's turn to page 141. "Is it because they like me, dearest?" he asked Mrs. Errol. "Is it, dearest? I'm so glad." You see, all the people who were invited to his birthday party were giving him a lot of attention, so he asked his mother if it was because they liked him. And then the Earl put a hand on his shoulder and said to him, "Cedric, tell them that you thank them for their kindness." Cedric glanced at his mother. "Must I?" he asked shyly. His mother nodded and smiled. So he stood, and with a very brave face he spoke out in his ringing, childish voice. Ringing, childish voice. It means that although it was a childish voice, he was a child, but the voice was still loud and clear. And what did he say? "Thank you so much," he said. "And I hope you'll enjoy my birthday, because I've enjoyed it so much. And I'm very glad I'm going to be an earl. I didn't think at first I should like it, but now I do. And when I am an earl, I will try to be as good as my grandfather." So you see, he idolizes his grandfather because he doesn't know about the dark side of the earl. But the earl has changed too. He has become a better person, all because of Cedric. The whole world seemed beautiful to him. Someone else was just as happy, an old man who, though he had been rich and noble all his life, had not honestly been very happy before this. Yes, it's the Earl. He's very, very happy, and so is Cedric. The Earl loved Cedric, and he found that every day he was more and more pleased with the boy's mother. He liked to hear her gentle voice and see her sweet face. He liked to watch her when he sat in his armchair. He saw her with her son and listened as she talked to him. You see, every passing day he realized what a wonderful person Mrs. Errol was, and he liked her more and more. He heard the loving words she used with her child, words the Earl couldn't recall ever hearing before. He began to see why the little fellow who had lived on a New York side street and had known grocery men and made friends with shoeshine boys was so well bred. No one could be ashamed of him. You see, when Mrs. Errol spoke to Cedric, she used very kind words and she spoke in a very gentle way. And the Earl couldn't remember having heard anyone talk in such a nice, gentle way, using such kind words. No one had spoken in such nice words and in such a nice way in the Earl's presence before. So the Earl now realized why Cedric was so well bred. Although when he lived in New York, he lived a life of a very ordinary child, and he knew ordinary people like Dick the shoeshine boy and Mr. Hobbs, etc. But still he had excellent manners. It was all because of the upbringing of his mother. It was really a very simple thing after all. It was only that the little boy had lived near a kind and gentle heart. His mother, Mrs. Errol. He had been taught to always think kind thoughts and to care for others. It is a very little thing perhaps, but it is the best thing of all. Yes, to have a kind heart and good manners are very, very important. The boy had known nothing of earls and castles. He had hardly known about grand and splendid things, but he had always been loved because he was kind and loving. And to be so is like being born a king. This means that when you are loved by people, then it's equal to being like a king. You see, a king who is nice and kind is loved by his people. And in the same way, all the people loved Cedric. He was their lord, and they knew that he would be a very kind earl, just like a nice and kind king. So this is the end of the book Little Lord Fauntleroy. I hope you enjoyed reading it with me. But before we end the lesson, I have a question for you. You don't have to write it down. You just discuss it with your parents or your siblings. The question is, Cedric had lived a very ordinary life before coming to England, but he was very well bred. From where do you think he learned all the good manners? All right, children, enjoy your holidays, work hard, and I'm hoping to see you all in school very soon. Till then, goodbye.